Chapter 1. Lightning Strikes Twice. It had been raining all night and all the morning, raining hard all over Dorset, Wiltshire and Hampshire. It was a cold February rain, filling the ditches, swelling the rivers, and stripping the few dead leaves that still clung to the trees. It made quagmires of the cow treads at field gates, spouted over blocked gutters, and flooded the low-lying roads so that passing cars sent up bow waves of spray and soaked unlucky passers-by. Now, at 11:30 precisely, as Smiler was being driven in a police car under the escort of two burly patrolmen, the father and mother of a thunder and lightning storm was brewing overhead. At first it was a few little murmurs, slowly rising to a full-scale roll and rumble of heavy thunder. Suddenly there came a great stabbing, downward sword thrust of lightning that turned the whole world into a blue and yellow dazzle of light. Smiler jumped in his seat and cried, "Blimey!" The policeman alongside him smiled. He said, "Nothing to be scared of, son. Just think, if we hadn't picked you up, you'd be out in it soaked even more." He glanced at Smiler's pile of wet clothes on the floor of the car, and then at the blanket-wrapped figure. It was a red, yellow and green striped blanket, and all that could be seen of Smiler was his head sticking out of the top, his fair hair still wet. Smiler, real name Samuel Miles, was 15 years and 5 months old. He had escaped 2 weeks before from an approved school and had been picked up that morning by the police. He had been caught because of a tip from a farmer in whose barn he'd been hiding and whose hen's eggs he'd been eating, sucking them raw. Smiler wasn't scared. The lightning had just made him jump, that was all. It took quite a lot to make Smiler scared. Smiler could look after himself. He was tallish and well-built, with a friendly, squarish face, a pressed-in smudge of a nose, and a pair of angelic blue eyes that, when he put on his special smile, made him look as though butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. But if Smiler didn't scare easily, there were also a lot of things Smiler didn't like. Smiler didn't like school, for instance. Particularly he didn't like approved school, and he'd run away from it after exactly 13 days and 4 hours' residence. Smiler didn't care for the country either, not because it scared him, or he felt out of place there. Smiler could always make himself at home in new surroundings. He just preferred towns and cities, where there were more opportunities for picking up the odds and ends of things that made living tolerable. After all, when you were mostly on your own, you had to eat and drink, have a bit of money in your pocket and be able to go to the cinema now and then, and treat yourself to a Coke in a cafe when you felt like company. Most of all, he didn't like the long periods when his father went off to sea. Then, instead of living in lodgings with his father and having a wonderful time, he was always dumped with Sister Ethel and her husband Albert. Smiler didn't like living with his married sister and her husband. Not because he didn't like them, they were all right, except when they were fussy about their house and their furniture, and grumbled because his hands always marked the paintwork. Also, Smiler didn't like being idle. He liked doing things. He liked to be busy. The trouble was that people made such a fuss about some of the things he did, well, like pinching a bottle of milk from a doorstep if he was thirsty, or nicking a comic book from a shop if he felt like reading. The driver, eyeing Smiler's reflection in the interior mirror, grinned and said, "You look like a Red Indian in that blanket. Little Chief Sitting Bull." At that moment, 200 yards ahead of the car, a streak of lightning flared earthwards. It seared itself into the top branches of a tree at the roadside, wreathed its way down the trunk, and hit the ground with a crack that made the whole earth shake. A great branch was split from the top of the tree and crashed across the road, blocking it. The police car braked and skidded to a halt 20 yards from the obstruction. A small car coming in the opposite direction wasn't so lucky. The branch fell a few yards in front of the car. The driver braked hard and the car slewed sideways into the block.